Hello, so today we're going to start the cityscape from an ant's eye view. So you need to imagine that you're a tiny little insect that's stranded in the city, and you're walking around on the street and you look up and you see all of these buildings towering over you. And so that's the illusion that we're trying to create. And we're going to use converging lines to show space. Just like in the previous assignment, this handout, we used converging lines to show space, show these shapes going on and on forever until they vanish. They're so long. Well, in this cityscape, we're going to chop our shapes off. We're not going to make them go on and on forever like we did on our handout. But our handout was practice to draw nice straight lines using a ruler matching up at the vanishing point. So the way that we start this is you're going to start with a white piece of paper. And I'm probably going to give you a square piece of paper. I forgot to cut mine. So you're going to get a square white piece of paper and you're going to trace around it with your pencil. Trace around the circle with your pencil. And then you are going to find somewhere near the middle to put your vanishing point. And it just needs to be maybe a little X or a little dot that's not too dark. And it doesn't have to be exactly center, as long as it's somewhere near the center, that's good. And then you're going to start to draw the sides of your buildings. So wherever you want to start along the outer edge of your circle, put your pencil down. Just like on the handout, we put our pencil down on the corner of the shape first, then we put the ruler against our pencil point, line the ruler up with our vanishing point, and we draw. And I'm going to draw up near the vanishing point, but not all the way. And I try not to push too hard with my pencil because I want to draw light until I get it right. And I know that I won't keep all of it, so I know that my buildings aren't going to go all the way to the vanishing point. And then trying to imagine that this is the bottom of my building and trying to make sure I have a horizontal line going across and not a diagonal going across the top of my building. And then I'm going to erase these lines that are a little bit longer than what I need. Alright, and then I'm going to turn my circle, and maybe this next building will just sit right next to this building, but maybe they'll be a little bit shorter because not all buildings are the same height or the same width, so maybe it's skinnier and shorter. So I'm going to put my pencil down first along the outer edge of the circle, line it up with a vanishing point, draw the side of the building, and then I'm going to make it go up against the first building, so I don't need to draw that other side of the building, and draw a horizontal line. So really, with the tops of our buildings, you're going to kind of be turning your circle to try to find the horizontal. We want to try to avoid making it more diagonal, and sometimes from this point of view that kind of happens. So now I'm going to make this next building that I draw be a little bit behind this building, so I'm going to start at the top of the building. I'll make it taller than the other buildings and draw up near the vanishing point, not all the way. I'm going to kind of make this building face me, towards me, so that I can try to find a nice horizontal and not a diagonal for the top, and then draw the top of that building. And I'm just going to keep doing this as I go around. Maybe this next building I'll have a wider part, a skinnier part, and a skinnier part. So let's start with the wider part first. So there's a building that gets smaller and smaller. And maybe I don't want these lines to go across the sections. Maybe I want to erase those. Not all the buildings have to be touching, the sides of the buildings have to be touching each other. You could leave a little bit of space. So I have a little bit of space there, maybe like an alleyway between the buildings. Alright, and now I'm kind of at the end, and I could just draw a horizontal line across here, or I could break this up into two buildings, but I think I'm just going to draw a horizontal line to make this one big building. Alright, so there are all my buildings. So now I want to make my buildings have windows and look like skyscrapers, and I could add an antenna on the top of them. But not all of the buildings need to have windows. I would say you could have about 3 that we just leave general shapes, but you could do lots of detail on all your buildings. You could try to add gargoyles and window seals and different types and shapes of windows, as long as you do it in correct proportion. So if you wanted to do like circle windows on a building, the circle windows would need to be bigger at the bottom, and then as they get closer to the vanishing point, they would get smaller. So I don't include any doors on my buildings because I'm imagining that I'm only seeing like the top part of the building. Since I'm an ant, I'm not actually looking at the bottoms of the buildings, I'm looking up into the sky, and these are the tops of my buildings, so I'm not adding doors to them. So if I add, let's say I'm going to do 2 rows of circle windows. I'm going to start, they're going to be nice and big here, but then as I get closer to the vanishing point, they get smaller, because we know things that get further away get smaller. Okay, so notice how my windows are larger at the bottom. I did not add more rows, and they gradually got smaller and smaller. And that was drawn freehand, just kind of eyeballing it and winging it. But it's really important that if you do a window this way, that you make sure that you keep the same number of rows and columns, but they gradually get smaller. So when I do like a skyscraper full of windows, I need to always line up my ruler with the vanishing point and just draw some vertical lines going across, or going up and down, not really across, going from bottom to top. Try to keep them about the same width at the bottom, which will help them to keep the same width at the top. And I could just leave this building like this, and it could be vertical lines of windows. Then on my next building, again, lining up with the vanishing point. Every time I draw a line that goes from the outer edge of the circle towards the center of the circle, I'm lining it up with that vanishing point. Then if I want to do crisscross lines, do them similar to the way you do if you wanted to do circle windows. So I'm going to line up the top of my ruler with the top of the building, and I'm going to pull it down and draw a line. But as I pull down and draw these horizontal lines across my building, I'm going to make these get longer, because the closer they are to me, the longer they're going to be. And that creates a nice visual illusion of space. So now these rectangles get smaller and smaller as they go towards the top of the building, because the top of the building is getting further away from me. Maybe this building I want to add a little antenna. But you don't have to add an antenna if you don't want to. Okay. And so maybe on this one, I just do horizontal lines that go across. And again, they're going to get a little bit bigger as I get further down close to me. Now, if you wanted to do traditional windows like this, you're going to draw the sides of them up and down lightly, lining up with finishing point. And I'm trying to space them out evenly, so that's why I kind of did the windows on the side first to kind of space those out. They're not exactly even. Now I'm going to go across horizontally and draw lightly. And this is going to be my first row. Then I'm going to pull my ruler down a little bit, do the top of the next row, make them a little bit bigger, pull my ruler down a little bit, top of the next row. So it does get a little confusing doing it this way. If you want to do it a different way, just making sure. And then I go back and I erase these skinny sections. And then you see that it starts to create rows of rectangles. So I need to do one more skinny section to erase. So now I've created nice rows of rectangles, and they gradually get smaller and smaller. This is probably the most difficult window set to draw. So for these kinds of windows, I'm drawing 2 big rows, and then now I'm going to go through and draw horizontal lines just on these rows. Alright, and so I'm not going to go ahead and do windows in here. I'm just going to skip to the coloring so I can show you what I want to see from you when you're coloring. So on my finished example, you'll see that I pressed hard on my pencil lines, and then I lightly colored in with the same color. If you would like to outline with black and color in with a different color, I would recommend coloring in the different color lightly and then tracing with black, because black colored pencil tends to smear with lighter colors. So don't, or you could outline with Sharpie marker if you wanted. You could get a permanent marker, outline everything with black, and then color it. You could keep it a pencil drawing and then just really work hard on your value and shading with your pencil. And everything could be in grays, and it would look more like an old-time city, like a black and white photo from, the 30s or something. and just try to draw on last year when you did your value pirate ship and how it was just a pencil drawing with lots of different values. You could draw on your knowledge from that drawing and shade in and do different values, light, medium, and dark values with how hard you push. But I'm going to go ahead and just quickly color in a building with colored pencil just to show you what I want to see. I want you to take your time. If you've taken your time drawing your city from an ant's eye view and used a ruler and drawn straight lines and shown converging illusions of space, then I want you to really take your time tracing with the color pencils so that you don't mess that illusion up, so I can still see it and give you a good grade. And you're demonstrating what your understanding of converging lines. If you just slap the color down and cover up your knowledge, then I won't know that you know that. So take your time, and the coloring is important. It's one of the last steps, but it's not a step to rush through and color. And then I'm going through and lightly filling in. And don't forget to color in your sky. And on this one, I limited my colors. I used brown, black, and then I used blues. You could do a rainbow city. You could start in the color spectrum and work your way around. You could, like I said, just keep it with pencils and gray tones and make it look almost like a black and white picture. You could use just black color pencil the whole entire time and do different values. These 3 buildings here are black color pencil, but I colored super lightly with the black color pencil on this one and darker here and darker here on those buildings. So you could just do black. You could limit your color choices to maybe all warm colors or all cool colors, or you could pick your 3 most favorite colors and just limit the color choices to that. That's up to you, but you're going to color this in completely with color pencil. Even the center sky part, you're going to color that in blue. Then you're going to cut this out and glue this to the center of a black square. So take your time cutting. Don't be sloppy. Remember, when you're cutting a circle, you turn the paper, not your scissors. I'm not turning my scissors. I'm slowly turning the paper and keeping my scissors going the same direction. And then you're going to glue this to the middle of the black paper. And you'll put a frame of glue, glue it to the middle, flip your black paper over, and write your name in white color pencil and the day you have art, and it goes on the drawing rack. So this is what you're shooting for a finished example. Completely colored in. Some of my windows are left white, but almost the whole entire paper is colored in. Name on the back, glued to black, drying rack. Good job, 5th grade.